Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Maxace Amber. Pretty interesting and straightforward flipper, a titanium frame lock flipper from Maxace. One of their much tamer designs. If you are not familiar with Maxace, they love to kind of cover both ends of the design spectrum. And what I mean by that is they create knives that I would describe as absolute wackadoodle bonkers. They make no sense. And then they make straightforward, super practical designs as well. They are definitely one of the very best, like one of the most precision Chinese production OEMs out there. They really are super capable and they flex it all the time. This is definitely going to be one of those that isn't quite so insane. And I know a lot of people, looking for a straightforward utilitarian cutting tool, but they also want something premium. They're going to be happy with that. So I will link this knife down in the description. I've actually got a discount code for Maxace, so you can use that if you want to. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's up to you. Thanks so much to Maxace for sending this in. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Let's go ahead and get a measurement. The overall length, it's not a small knife, not by a long shot. It's actually about 8.5 inches, maybe a little bit more. I'm going to say it's about 8.6 inches. Blade length is coming in at about 3.8. Blade length is coming in, cutting edge is coming in at about 3.75. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. So up against the 80-10 and the 80-20.5. It's about the same overall length as the 80-10 with a little more cutting edge. It's just not quite as robust. Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. A little longer than the Spyderco PM2 with way more cutting edge, way bigger than the Para 3. And then finally up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue, and the Hogue Deca. How's the action? Maxace knows how to do a flipper. In fact, a lot of their flippers, this is very close to double clutch by the way, but if you get on the back part of the relief cut down here, let that large flipper tab come down to your thumb, it will clear, that detent ball will clear, and it'll get up on the face of the blade. So it's very close to double clutch, but not quite. But anyways, a lot of Maxace's flippers feel, and I mean this in the best way possible, they feel like when ZT was the king of titanium frame lock flippers. They've really zeroed in on that nice detent ball and flipper tab relationship, and you get a super satisfying, very powerful throw of the blade. Feels really, really good. It's a fairly tight lock bar. I'm not going to say that it's sharp, but slightly pinchy. You're going to feel it, but there's a lot of lock bar tension there, I think, helping out with that detent, which I think otherwise might be a little bit light. It doesn't feel like an incredibly strong detent, but man, when you go to flip it, it feels amazing. I'm going to call that kind of a medium, maybe even a medium light detent. It's really interesting. It feels, flipping this, I would go, oh, that's got to be a heavy detent. I think it's just the position and shape of the flipper tab is just tuned really, really well for that type of action. You can also use this little groove right here to reverse flick it, and that's probably why the detent is a little lighter. You can also use these little thumb steps, which work really well. Truthfully, all of the methods of deployment are extremely satisfying. Like each one is very specifically set up to feel good. Can you use those steps to reverse flick it? Let's just use the meat of my finger here. Let's see if I can get it. I'm having a little bit of trouble with that, but that's probably on me. Now that we got it. Okay. So, but yeah, all of the means of deployment are actually really, really nice, very comfortable, and very satisfying, which is good. So anyways, let's do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's a little thicker, but it's also, I'm not going to call it contrast. There's a lot of sculpting with the materials going on here, so it fills the hand in a very satisfying way. Length and height up against the PM2. This is a fairly bulky carry, but not crazy, right? If you're used to carrying full-size or larger knives, this is going to feel right at home. It definitely doesn't feel like anything overbuilt from cold steel. It still carries a lot easier, something like the 80-10. Lengthwise folded up, it's pretty similar to the Spyderco PM2, and even with the flipper tab, not quite as tall. Still longer, of course, than the Para 3. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. That pivot's going to be a T8, almost certainly. There we go. And then you have a pocket clip screw that's also holding the frame together alongside this one right here. So just a couple of screws, and there might be a couple of screws underneath, but very, very simple, straightforward. And then you have, you've got the bearings on the inside, but it's a frame lock construction with just a few fasteners. And they're all, at least the visible ones, are T8, and even if there are hidden screws underneath, they're probably T6 at worst. Should be very, very easy to disassemble and maintain. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and weigh it. What are we looking at for materials? Really nice carbon fiber, absolutely gorgeous carbon fiber. We have titanium, big titanium backspacer. We have a little bit of an earthworm titanium pocket clip, and then we have an M398 DLC blade. Kind of that matte DLC, not quite the same chalkiness as Spyderco's DLC, but approaching it. But they do list this as DLC on their website. What's the HRC? 59 to 61. Maxace has stuck with that. 59 to 61 is not what I'd call a bad range. It's just not the most impressive range. 60, 61, yeah, that's fine. In fact, 61 is great for M390. 59, pretty lackluster. So it's in a range that people are going to kind of go, I wish that every company would bump up to 60 to 62. I think that would be great, but you can't always get what you want. So that's what you're looking at there. Do we have milling for weight reduction? Actually, no. It doesn't look like we have any. So I'm going to guess that this knife weighs at least 5.5 ounces. Let's find out. Maybe I'm wrong. I am. It weighs 4.9 ounces. Not incredible, but not necessarily bad, considering it's an 8.5 ounce knife. And you know what? The balance is right behind the pivot, so that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness, and then we'll move in to the meat and potatoes here. Blade stock thickness, almost certainly 150 thousandths. 156 thousandths. So on the thicker side. Okay, meat and potatoes. This is a pretty straightforward knife. I mean, I feel like I've seen this profile in one way, shape, or form from a number of different companies. So it's just like a subtle variation. My favorite part is probably the way that they've laid in this carbon fiber. It's actually raised above the titanium frame that's highlighting it, slightly shadow boxed, and then they leave this big area open. But the carbon fiber looks really, really nice. I love just like the plain black carbon fiber that's been sculpted so that you get that really nice aesthetic. I do not like the flat. I don't like it when companies just make carbon fiber flat and then they polish it. I think it looks awful. So this is really, really nice. I like that. I also like that the backspacer looks like it's nested into the, it is nested into the frame. I appreciate the logo back here. I think that's cool. Pocket clip, a little weird looking. Not sure why they had to give it such an earthworm look. And it's also, I'll say this right now, it's very sharp right there. It doesn't look like it. Super sharp. I mean, that will absolutely, I thought it would almost shave my fingernails. But you're going to feel that. It's very, very pokey. Max says you really need to knock these pocket clips down a bit. That's just really, really sharp. Retention on it is actually lighter than I thought it would be, but it's still pretty tight. In and out of the pocket, honestly, pretty good. It's just ergonomically, you're going to feel that thing poking into your hand. Outside of that, though, the knife is comfortable. Kind of some useless jimping up here. I'm not sure what this is for. Either put jimping there or don't put anything there at all. This little thing actually, for the most part, clears the cutting path. So that's cool. You make use of this nice elongated, sharpened area of the blade, really making use of almost entirely the whole sharpened edge, which is nice. This area is going to be a little bit of a gunk trap while you're cutting, and just blow it out, wipe it out, you'll be okay. But you will get stuff caught up in here. Behind the edge, fairly kind of a medium thick. It'll slice, it'll cut from the factory, right? It feels good. Maxace knows how to do a good edge, but it's not going to be a laser beam for sure. Nice tip here. Definitely going to excel at puncture tasks. It will do exactly what you expect it to do. Perhaps not as optimized as something that has geometry better suited for slicing, but it'll do just fine. I mean, it's very, very similar to a lot of the common blade geometries that we see in today's knife world. If you are somebody who's going to dedicate specifically to this knife or this knife and just a couple of others, you're going to use this all the time, you're going to be sharpening it all the time, and you're going to want to take a look at the plunge grind right here, which might cause a little bit of trouble. If you're like me and you have lots of knives and you use them very, very casually, then this area is not going to matter nearly as much to you, but I want to make sure that you guys get a good look at it. So definitely far from the worst that I've seen, but also something that might cause some people some grief, so keep that in mind. Do we have a lanyard area? We do not. We don't have a lanyard area at all. We also don't have a mounting position for the pocket clip for left-handed folks. So this is a right-handed only knife. If you're the type of person that has issues deploying your titanium frame lock, whether it be with the flipper, with the thumb things, or the reverse flick or whatever, oftentimes the reason is because you're putting pressure directly on the lock bar. And this can be a little bit of an awkward thing to get around. Once you figure it out, you tend to just kind of learn to keep your fingers off the lock bar regardless of the design. Something that I appreciate about designs like this is that a lot of the lock bar is, well, just a little tiny bit, honestly, in this case. And truthfully, actually almost nothing. But they give you a lot of space. What I'm trying to say is they give you a lot of space to rest your fingers in an area that has nothing to do with that lock bar. Usually, like with inlays or overlays, they kind of cover that lock bar, and I really like that because you can kind of squeeze as hard as you want. It doesn't matter. You're not going to mess with the lock bar. This is kind of close to that. This kind of gives you an indicator because you can feel the transition from carbon fiber to titanium, and it's very obvious that you've gone from this area over to the lock bar, which is where you don't want to be. So it's really easy and organic to just kind of place your fingers on the carbon fiber and not push on that lock bar and get that nice, satisfying flip, which I really like. The stop pin, I think, is internal. Is it fixed in place or does it follow the blade? I have to actually look with the white in the background here. I actually can't see this. Oh, you know why? It's because there isn't one. It's because these right here are the stops. Let's actually look and see if we can see the mark. Yeah, we can. So the downside to using stuff like this as an external stop, both in the open and closed position, is that it leaves marks on the frame. Now, I didn't notice until I realized that, these were the stops. So I had to actually look for it. But you can see there where it's touching it in the closed position. This isn't going to hurt it at all. And then you can probably also see, much less, you can also see where it's touching the frame in the open position, which is fine. A benefit here is that, you don't have to worry about, like a lot of designs, they have to figure out a specific spot for the closed stop pin position. You definitely don't want that stop pin contacting here because obviously, as has been pointed out to me, continuous sharpening and removal of that material makes that area no longer optimized to be utilized by the stop pin. So you're going to have issues over time. Obviously, positioning the stop pin in a way that is not affected by repeat sharpenings is optimal. But this way, you have a closed position and open position stop that has nothing to do with that. So it's fine. I don't really care. I changed my own design so that the stop was internal, and that way you wouldn't see the marks here. Usually up here, they're much harder to see because of the curvature, right, of this area. Catching it just doesn't show quite as much. But some people are going to be bothered by that, and some people are not. I don't really personally have a problem with it. Lockup, it looks like, oh, and by the way, do we have a, yeah, we do. There is actually steel lock bar insert in there. Can we see it right there? Steel lock bar insert that doubles as the over travel stop. So that's great. We have no blade play up, down, left, or right. We have no lock stick. We have close to, but no double clutch, no pivot lash, smooth and consistent in here. And like I said, kind of a medium light detent. Do we have perfect centering? Actually, we do. We have laser perfect centering. They've even highlighted it on part of the backspace. So it's kind of a risky move there because if you're off left or right from the factory, even just a little tiny bit, you're definitely going to notice it. But that's perfectly centered with no detent lash. The pocket clip is the one thing that really bothers me. I wish that it was knocked down a bit more. You could, take some sandpaper and knock this down a bit yourself. You might screw up the finish a little bit, but it's not like it's anodized, right? I just wish that was a little better from the factory. What's the price on this? The base price is about $268. It's okay. It's not the most amazing price in the world, but we do have some pretty cool elements here, including the way that they've laid in the carbon fiber. The DLC on top of the M398 is cool. Outside of that, it's definitely a profile I've seen a million times. I've also seen knives like this released by, similar Chinese companies or companies that don't even do work as nice as Maxace, and they charge over $300 for it. So I'm glad that Maxace is, kind of keeping a level head with some of this stuff and keeping their prices reasonable. I would have really liked to see this in the lower 200s, but I'm not going to get too upset about $268. They have the usual super spicy versions of this knife. If you want Damascus, you want all that crazy stuff, right? They've got different variations where you can spend more money. This knife is okay. I think it's really in fact, the knife is pretty good outside of the pocket clip. The pocket clip really bums me out. Wish that was better. But if you can get around the pocket clip, I think you'll really like this knife. It doesn't stand out, dramatically. And again, I don't think Maxace really meant for it to. When Maxace wants to stand out, they do it. They seem to have no shortage of wild and crazy unique designs, and I feel like they do it just to flex that they can. I think it's super easy. It's essentially like knife 101 to them to pump out practical, straightforward designs. I think they can do that in their sleep. I think what they really love to do is make the wild and crazy stuff. So I appreciate that they're kind of covering both ends. This knife is okay. Not something that you should be beating down doors for. It's okay. I think if you pick it up, you'll be happy with it. Not something that I'm going to openly recommend to everybody. That's going to be pretty much it today, guys. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.